I do think the Russians have seized most, if not all, of the town, judging by what we are seeing from here. There are reports that Ukrainian soldiers have been seen being driven away from the town in a fairly orderly manner. Um, they may well be fighting a rearguard action. The aim of the Ukrainian defense has always been to basically, I mean, I know it sounds obvious, but to maximize the Russian casualties while guarding their force for what we assume is a defense of the town of Bakhmut further south, a much bigger and more important town of Bakhmut further south, and also for offensives in the spring. The Russians have made this town, Soledar, a sort of major symbolic target. It's not in itself hugely important, but it's become very important to them to get some sort of symbolic victory after a series of defeats, and they've really poured numbers into it and taken huge casualties. So,
does the symbolism of Soledar have anything to do with the salt mines and the interests of the Wagner group of mercenaries?
People have said that. He's even sort of hinted at that himself. I don't think salt is such a valuable and rare entity that it justifies the losing of what we believe to be several thousand lives in the last couple of weeks alone on the Russian side. I think it's more that that the Russian forces haven't broken through. They haven't managed to capture this town, Bakhmut. The Wagner group, this strange mercenary force which has been recruiting convicts out of prisons, was given the task of taking Soledar, and it became a sort of prestige thing for Wagner Group and its boss, this very ambitious oligarch Yevgeny Prigozhin, and also it's his way of impressing Putin for whom it's also very important to get some sort of victory.
There are some signs that the Kremlin is sort of losing patience with him, aren't there? That perhaps he's overstepped the mark, the leader of the Wagner Group.
Yeah, Kremlin. I mean, I'm not a Kremlinologist by training, but
you've learned to be, though.
Having watched very closely what's gone on there, I would say, Putin and men like Putin like having their lieutenants compete with each other. That's kind of how they operate. So I think the clash is not so much between the Kremlin and Prigozhin, though I'm sure they're keeping a wary eye on his rising ambitions. I think the clash is between the regular army, who, like most regular armies, don't like being usurped by mercenary forces, and you've seen that the sniping that's gone on has been between the defense ministry, bridling at these claims by Prigozhin that only his troops were involved in taking Soledar, and Prigozhin, who's been telling off the generals in charge of the front and the chief of staff, Gennady Gerasimov, for not having managed it on their own.
And just briefly, where does whatever happens to Soledar, what is the status now of Russia's performance in the war, and what the next few months might hold?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tricky one to call. What we know is that Russia has called up hundreds of thousands of extra men since it suffered those defeats in the spring and summer and early autumn of last year, and hasn't thrown them all into this battle of these battles of Bakhmut and Soledar, using this Wagner force instead. So the question is, how well trained can they get those conscripts? How battle ready are they? Because obviously, Russia has relied on having a superiority of numbers. It's losing the superiority of artillery because of the very high quality artillery that the West has been providing Ukraine. It's still got superiority in numbers. So if it can apply those well, then this war isn't over, and it can still make advances as we're seeing here. Russia can. If it can't really get its act together, then that's a different matter. And I think Ukraine is planning counteroffensives in the spring, and we'll see how successful they are.